Alright, we're doing some castings today, but I wanted to show you a comparison. One of the things I'm working on today is the casting for the grown-up Quorn tool and cutter grinder. There's an original, and there's the what we're building. So that's a third bigger. So that at least gives us a little bit of perception about the difference in size between these two. So I'm going to go ahead and cast these up. We're going to let the camera run. I got about 3 castings I'm going to do today. And this is the primary one I want to get done. So anyway, we'll get it set up on the tripod and we'll bring you back in a minute. This is the 3D printed pattern for the grown-up Quorn tool and cutter grinder. And several different ways I could have done this. This is the quick and dirty way right here. This is what we're doing. There'll be some extra machining on this that if I was building a proper mold to do multiples of, well, I would have built a core box for this, which would have put a recess down in here, would have given us our curves down here and all of our bosses and everything. I'm just going to machine those out. This is a one-off setup, and we're just going to run it and see what we come up with. Like I say, if we get one good casting out of it, that's all I'm really interested out of this pattern probably. It'll probably never be used again. So I had to make some changes to it. I misinterpreted it when I set it up to 3D print it, and I put my bosses, my clamping bosses, I actually put them on top instead of on the bottom. So what I did is I just went back, 3D printed the bosses themselves, super glued them in place, and then added some fillets around them, and we cut off the top and just filled them out. So the pattern's by no means perfect, but for a one-off, I think it'll do just fine. So we'll find out. A couple of the patterns. This is going to be the first time I've run the match plate with the for the Atlas lathe stops. You know, these we'll probably do as a kit. I'm going to machine out the first one, and we'll see how they come, and then I'll probably offer these as a unmachined kit, basically. May do a couple little things to make it easier for you in the home shop to be able to reproduce these. And the other is I'm going to go back to developing a pattern for the Atlas shaper door. This is an original that I've cast off of this one before and got some really good guards. We're going to go ahead and I'm just going to we're just going to ram up a pattern, cast it with no insert in it for the lip down here on the bottom, and we're going to develop a pattern off of this, set it up with on a match plate probably, and then do a core box to get our insert down here. So that's the plan. This is my quickie core box for my spindle bore that the Workhead will, or the work spindle will go into on this. So we're just going to ram them up and see how they go. This was our latest little box right here, and it was specifically for little shallow stuff like this. That should go just like that. I am going to mark this because I'm going to vent each of these on the top. I'm not going to run a riser out of them. I'm going to try and just vent them into each one and see how well that works. This flask will get used for other ones, but I just mark them out for whatever I'm going to use them for. And we can just eyeball our vent positions on each of these, and that should be plenty accurate enough for them. That should be plenty accurate for what we want to do there. That's the top. Let's ram up the bottom first. Our sand's been sitting for several days, so it actually feels pretty good, so we'll just see how it's going to work out. We're going to leave that on there. Probably get a little tear out on this match plate just because we haven't run it before. It's still a little bit rough. Once they've been molded 2 or 3 times, why they tend to smooth out a little bit just from the friction of the sand. You're going to vent this, don't get carried away here. We're going to vent this with a pretty big vent wire. Well, let's see if it's going to come apart. We got a little bit of fallout, but all in all, that's not a bad pull. It looks pretty good there, I think. Okay, for a first pattern, I'm not going to do anything else with that. I'm going to leave it just like that. Oh, I do see a little bit of crap here. I'm going to leave it just like that, and we'll see how it pours. I think we'll put a riser up out of here on the boss that sits on this side. We're going to vent it fairly heavy through here and through here, and I think what I'm going to do is feed it from here. I think we'll actually feed it right into the center as well as probably into both ends there. It's probably the way we're going to feed that, I do believe. I believe. This pattern's not exceptionally smooth. It's just a standard 3D print on standard print quality. There's nothing spectacular about it at all. think we're going to feed it from right here, and then we'll put a riser right up there. If we were running a core in there, there probably, or a core for the front cutout. We are running a core for the internals. If we were running a core box there, why, we could probably get away with less venting, but there's going to be quite a bit of mass still in there that we're not cutting down on, so we'll go ahead and put a fairly substantial riser in it, and then feed it from about 3 places and vent it pretty heavy along the way. Okay, let's vent this one pretty heavy too. Let's see, we're right in the middle of the boss. We should be able to go about there. There. Let's try that. That should be great plenty. Maybe. Well. Okay, came in halves. So far that looks pretty good. Go ahead and gate this. And I think what we will do, this may be a bad idea, we'll see. While we're here, let's go ahead, we're going to gate into this one, into this one, and into this one. We'll finish those up when we pull that half. Okay, I ran almost no draft on there at all, just because, you know, it's a loose pattern and one off. I thought I could bounce it out of there, and I think we've done that. I think it'll be fine. I got a little bit of tear out here on the edges, but I think we can work with that. Okay, there's the first one. Let's see if we can get the second half out of here. And then we'll ram up our little cheesy core and see if we can get a core set down in it. Oh yeah, well we've got it up here. Let's go ahead. No, let's not. Let's go ahead and see if we can't get this out of here. Not too bad. Maybe. Maybe. Okay, well let's ram up one of our Mickey Mouse little cores here. Now ramming it this tight could be a problem, but I think I'm gonna, I think I vented the rest of it well enough to where I don't think it'll be an issue. And I think we're going to run a wire down through the middle of there just for a little bit more support. Grab a wire here. A little more support there. And all this is a piece of PVC that's been split in half. It's a little bit ovaled and out of round, so we're going to work the core just a little bit to round it up a smidgen. got a core. So if we're careful, you can set her right down in there, just like that. Set this right on top. And there's 2 out of 3. So since this is going to drag out forever, I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and set this one aside. I'll ram up the 3rd one and then we'll come back in a bit. Okay guys, I've decided until I get the shop redone here, we're not going to try and show any pores. I've got too much other stuff going on and it's too hot. So looks like all 3 of these came out fine. Is my initial thoughts on them. Let's go ahead and bust them out and see what they look like. In no particular order here, this is the shaper door for the Atlas shapers. So didn't fill. Well shit, I thought that was a good one there. Thought that was a good one. Acted like it was doing everything it was supposed to do. So there's the first failure of the day. We shorted that one. All 3 of these felt really good when I poured them. So, one disaster. Pretty good pattern too for an initial one. There's what our logo would have looked like. See if I can get a... Yeah, that's the way the Atlas would have looked on it. Darn it. That was a disappointment. Okay, well that was such a disaster. Let's go to the second one. This is going to be the carriage stops for the Atlas. It's going to be carriage stops for the Atlas lathe. Those look okay for a first time out. From that side of the guy. Okay, let's see what we got here. Shrinkage in every one of those. We're going to have to vent those more. Huh. I'm not doing well today. Yeah, those all shrunk up. we'll have to change those around and vent them a little bit. Okay, so other than shrinkage, those look pretty good. Huh. We're not doing well today. Shrinkage in every one of those. I figured we'd have some shrinkage, but I didn't think it would be nearly that severe. Now we'll work that pattern just a little bit more and make some changes to it. That's first time through. Learning experience. I'm not liking this learning experience stuff. Okay, this is my grown-up Quorn tool and cutter grinder. And this is actually the one that I wanted to come out, so let's see what we got. I was real optimistic. Now I'm not so much. Now not so much. Okay, that I believe will be a usable casting. I was kind of contemplating this because I see some lines that I didn't recognize, but what they are is that pattern was rough enough that when I pulled them away, it did a little bit of fallout there, and that's what that is. Come out there. Okay, let me go and quench this and cool it off so we can handle it. We'll come back and look at it. Alright, well, this is the one that I wanted to come out, and I've got a relatively good casting here with it. Got just a little bit of shrinkage right here. What stymied me right off the bat was I saw some striations or some lines right down through here. And I wasn't sure what that was, but it's when I pulled that pattern, being 3D printed with very minimal draft on it. Boy, that's just the edge of the pattern that was hanging on it. You know, 3D prints, for the way I print them for these, they're a little bit rough anyway. You know, they've got some lines along the edge, and you can actually feel them. So where these all get finished out, I don't worry about it a whole lot on stuff like this, especially one-offs. So this will be a usable casting. Now, I did have a couple of flaws in it. I do like the way I gated it. Got a little inclusion there, whether that was some fallout. Plus along the edges I've got a little bit of fallout there, a little bit of inclusions, but there again, for this application, there's so much material here anyway that it's not going to make a bit of difference. On the front, and there again, this is where it pulled. You know, I got a little dimple there. Those will have to be smoothed out and everything. There may be a little bit of shrinkage in a few little places, but nothing that's going to make any difference at all for this application. I'm going to go ahead, cut the risers off of this. Now, when I gated this gate should have run on over into here, and I completely missed that, so it ran back out, but it would have shorted there, or it did short there. It didn't fill, and that may have contributed to a little bit of this. I'm going to say that there's a little bit of shrinkage right in through there, and just a little bit right in through here on this side too. So nothing that's going to make any difference in this casting. So I'll cut this off, clean it up a little bit, and we'll take one more look at it. Well, another morning spent in futility. Not really. Here's our grown up Quorn casting, and this is going to be a usable casting for my use. It's not a perfect casting. I got a little bit of, well, I got some inclusions in it. Some sand probably fell in more than anything else. I have a little bit of shrinkage up in this area, a little bit on the side right here, actually on both sides, just a little bit of shrinkage right there. And the bottom looks pretty good. We didn't get any shrinkage there. We do have a few little inclusions, but there again, for my use here, and you know, we've got some yuckies here on the ears. Now this will all get machined away, so these are a round boss, and then this higher area here will get machined down except for those bosses, and then the whole thing gets relieved down in here because there's a bolt that goes in this area between the mounting plate and the casting itself. So that'll get machined away. Everything else looks pretty good. There's our green sand core in there. Oh, we got a big inclusion right there. I didn't see that. We've got a big shrinkage right down in there that does not make a bit of difference. This is going to get relieved inside here because it's got to go down to these bosses. There's the portion that pivots on there, so that all gets machined away, and that inclusion or that shrinkage may poke all the way through. Doesn't make a bit of difference. You know, nobody's ever going to know except me and you now. So anyway, could this casting have been better? Yes, but how much time am I going to spend on a one-off casting like this? You know, we did the 3D print on it. I could have made that pattern better. I could have added more draft to it. I could have printed it smoother so we didn't have any ridges on the side of it. Let me grab that. I believe it's sitting right here. We can actually see and hear the print layers there on that, both sides of it, all sides of it. You know, down inside. We could have smoothed those up. I could have, once I got it finished to this point, put a couple of layers of paint on it, sanded it smooth, so we had something that resembled a real pattern that was nice and finished and smooth, and it would have drawn better. That would have given us quite a bit better casting. So I could have done stuff better there, but how much time are you going to spend? You know, so that's the gist of that. Now, if you remember, I've said previously that you always do a feel-good casting, and for me, that's my match plate vibrator, because those always come out for me. Unless I just screw up bad, they always come out. I didn't do one of those today. I did these other three castings, and fortunately, the grown-up Quorn tool and cutter grinder casting came out to where it's usable. Otherwise, I might have been a little bit depressed. You know, I've got basically half a day between ramming up molds and doing a pour and shaking them out and retempering sand and starting to cut off gates and risers. So, you know, if you're doing multiple castings, and especially when you're starting out new, and the only casting that I've done here before was at a Atlas shaper door, and it was always done with the intent of just having a good casting. Now, over the years, I haven't done one in several years now. Over the years, I've changed my techniques and the way I pour a little bit, and for this casting, I just wanted the first of probably two castings that I'm going to use to build a match plate off of. you know, at least one and maybe a second one. Lettering came out very nice. You know, I'm very happy with the lettering in that. There's a couple little dropouts, but nothing that I'm going to be upset about. Now, I left all of this and did that intentionally just because there's going to be a core put in there. So I'm starting to develop the pattern with what that core is eventually going to be. So that was intentional. I'm not concerned about that. What could I have done different on these to make it come out better? And there's a couple of things that come to mind. I poured this metal a little bit cold. I probably could have ran the temperature up a little bit more, probably let it settle in the furnace for about 5 more minutes. Probably would have at least helped this substantially. Now when I look at this casting, and I don't know if it's going to show up on camera or not, I can see a little mark across here and then it picks up again over here. That's where that casting's starting to short. That's where it's starting to freeze on me a little bit. And there's a couple other places that, that can mean several things, but in this particular casting, that's an indication to me that it was a little bit cold. So had I poured it a little bit hotter, I probably still would not have had success, but it would have helped fill this casting. Now, one of the things that I do know, and there again, it depends on who you talk to, but it comes down to how you learn to do it and your technique. I use that little tiny tapered sprue again, and I do like using that sprue. That's an old foundry man trick. Had I ran a real sprue on this, it probably would have filled. Or not a real sprue, but had I run a big sprue on there, it probably would have filled that. Now, this runner's a little bit small. I could have increased that runner, probably would have helped a little bit. I've actually got a little bit of shrinkage in this runner here. And these, like I say, were cut just with the idea of getting it out of the sand and starting to form where my core is going to go in here. So that's not a real indication to me. This looks kind of ugly the way it was fed, but probably had I fed it faster with a larger sprue, it probably would have filled. So that's kind of my take on that one. On my little carriage stops for the Atlas lathe, and this is the first time that I've ran this match plate. This is the first time I've tried to run this pattern, and I knew it was going to take improvements. I plan on changing around all of my match plates when I set them up. It's very rare that I'll do a match plate and be completely happy with the way it is. Now, it filled okay, it ran okay. I like the gating system on them. We've got minimal gating. We've got our small gates here. I think that's plenty to feed these. Where I ran into problems, and a larger gate might have helped it a little bit, but probably not. Every one of these on top shrunk, and it's quite a shrinkage there. So the way I'm probably going to address that, and I vented each of these. I thought maybe venting it would be enough. I actually thought that just venting them would be enough. It's not. We need a little more material in there, and it doesn't matter how we feed it through this small sprue, which is fine. It feeds it, it fills it fine. What I will probably do is just put a boss right on the top of each one of those patterns on the top side. My little bosses that sit up for the witness mark for adjusting it, why they all pulled fairly nicely. I'm very happy with those. I don't think I'm going to change anything there. The patterns themselves need a little more sanding on them, and probably another coat or two of finish will take care of that. I've got some places that didn't fill where I doweled them together, and I knew that. That's nothing I didn't know. But I think for this pattern, like I say, we'll probably just put a little bit taller boss. I could extend the whole top end just a little bit on these, bring them up, and that would allow enough shrinkage that portion down to there could just be machined away. That might be an option too. Either way, we're going to have to machine the very top of that off of there. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like I say, I may go back and just extend the top of the back portion of these back to about here. Back to right about where they come down to the 2 ears. I might extend that up another, 1/4 of an inch would take care of any shrinkage that was in there. And then vent them, maybe with a couple of little short vents in there, something that way. But always a learning experience. I could cry and whine about it, but stuff happens. Learn from it. We'll make some adjustments, and probably the next time we'll have probably 6 good carriage stops out of there. As far as shaper doors, well, I'm still a 2 castings away from having the parts I want to make a pattern. And the amount of shrinkage that I'm going to get by using an original and then building a pattern is going to be so minimal on the shaper that it's not going to make a bit of difference. So anyway, that's where we're at. Half a day gone. 1:30 now. Started about 9, so a little more than half a day. Comments or suggestions, leave them in the comments section for me below. And as always, thanks for taking the time to watch.